Hello on. Running. Good day. My name is Martin Schweiger and I'm a patent attorney in Singapore, and I'm also a powerlifter, and I take you with me to my daily walk. I walk every day 7,000 steps or more. Because I was diagnosed with a metabolic syndrome exactly 1 year and 3 months and 2 days ago. And I found that the daily walk really helps to improve that syndrome. So I would say 80% healed without taking any drugs, except for some supplements that you can buy over the counter free without prescription. And I believe that's unusual, because most people who are diagnosed Samini. Okay, interrupted. Whenever I do my videos and people call me, then I get interrupted. And that is what happened right now. And I will from now on change my setup such that when I'm doing my recordings, I will enter the phone into flight mode. That's something that I should do before I even start. So, yeah, most people, I wanted to say, that get diagnosed with metabolic disorder would try to solve that with pharmaceuticals. And the reason therefore is because they are not diagnosed with a metabolic syndrome, but diagnosed with one of the many disorders that the metabolic syndrome comes with. And then they would try to address that by a certain therapy. But only, and that's a sad thing, only would that certain symptom, or they call it disease, be addressed by the treatment. And that leads to funny things. For example, if you're diagnosed with diabetes 2, then the doctor would give you as a therapy insulin. And that insulin would solve the high blood sugar level, because it would bring it down. But on the other hand, the insulin, if it's available in excess, would damage the body in other ways. So the right way would be, when you're diagnosed with diabetes, and that happened to me, bring that high blood sugar level under control by eating the right food. And mainly that's not eating the right food, but for the start, avoiding the food that causes the high blood sugar level, which is carbohydrates. Yes, it's not easy, I know, but it can be done. And once you're there, then you look at all the other issues that your body has, like high triglycerides, lipid panel, thyroid, blood pressure, you name it, many. I had them all. So, and by improving one, you're improving all the others. Today I'm really, I would say, 80% healed, maybe except my lipid panel and some liver functions. But this is really mild. It's not serious anymore. Oh, my microphone. The wind blows it around. Hopefully you can hear me. So, I have an example. A friend of mine has a domestic helper who fell sick. Oh, fell sick? No. She was diagnosed with breast cancer. It must be a very big tumor. And you know where I'm coming from? Medicine falls into two, when it comes to cancer, in two big areas that are completely isolated from each other. There are the guys, the medical doctors, who start from the theory that cancer is a genetic disease that comes from a bad DNA, and that will also cause metabolic disturbances. And the other one are the medical doctors who believe that cancer is a genetic change of the cells, but it is caused by a metabolic syndrome. I believe the latter have the better arguments. There's Dr. Thomas Seyfried, which I highly recommend. He has books and he's often on YouTube. So, my first reaction to my friend's message that her domestic helper was diagnosed with a tumor. I mean, you know, I was also diagnosed with tumor markers in my blood 1 year and 3 months, and I really suffered for 1 week. I was really scared. But it turned out that this is nonsense. I had the same tumor markers for 2 decades, and I'm still alive and have no tumor. So tumor markers are worth nothing, I believe. At least so far for me. So, my first attempt was to find out, does this woman have metabolic disorders? And I recommend to start with 4 measurements. You know me, huh? If you cannot measure it, don't treat it. The first measurement would be blood glucose. And I believe you need a 24 hours measurement. So there's the continuous blood glucose meter measurement. Then I'm very sure that this will show some spikes that go beyond the 8.0 mark. By the way, my own blood sugar still goes beyond that. I can go up to 11 or so, but it's much better as compared with when I started. That went up to 15 or 16, so it's better. So the first thing I would check. Then I would check what's her nitric oxide production. This woman is 48 years old, and that's her age where that can be impaired, especially when you have a metabolic disorder or syndrome even. Then I would measure per VO2 max. Just because I wanted to find out how is her mitochondrial health. So now, these three measures would cost not much. The most expensive one is the continuous blood glucose sensor. I would go for the most expensive one, which is from Abbott, the Libre or Libre. It's simply foolproof. The nitric oxide test strip costs maybe $3 for 50 measures. I would take a measure, so nothing. And the VO2 max test costs nothing, because all what you need is a device that measures your output energy, like a stepper or a bicycle or anything that has on the dashboard a watt meter. And then I will describe that. I have described it in an earlier video on a stepper. Maybe I do that again. And then these are three tests. And the fourth test, I would go for a CT calcium scan of the body to see whether there's plaque in the arteries. Because this is caused by metabolic syndrome. It's one of the disorders that come from metabolism. And the funny thing is, you always think that only fat guys would get plaque. Yes, they get plaque, but you can also get plaque in your arteries if you're not fat at all. For example, if you have a so-called leaky gut, so that bacteria would enter through the intestine to the liver and cause inflammation that is then transported through the bloodstream and then cause plaque to be built up. That's expensive, costs a few $100s. In Singapore I paid 300 something for that test in January. And I have very mild plaque. And as compared with 1 year and 3 months ago when I started, that there I had heavy plaque. You could even measure it with an ultrasound meter in my carotid arteries in my neck. That's gone after 1 year and 3 months. So with these 4 measurements, Everything is good. And I can tell you already what they would find. They would find that there's a serious metabolic syndrome. Then, now the treatment. I mean, I'm an engineer by training and not a medical doctor, so I would not treat that lady, but I would leave it to the system. And I would hope that the patient, this lady, is mature enough so that she can decide what the doctors do to her body. And in her place, I would choose the mildest form of treatment that is possible. And if there are no the German word is Metastasen, maybe metastasis, I don't know. You know, if the cancer spreads, then because the cancer, quite smart, can use the internal body transport system to spread. And then infect, is infection the right word? Maybe. Other cells to become a new seed for a local tumor. So if there are no tumors visible in other parts of the body, by the way, you know how you test this? You wouldn't believe it. An ex-cancer a cancer patient, a cancer survivor, has told me that when he became suspicious, they measured whether there are metastases, and then they do this. There's radioactive substances that are bound to a sugar molecule and then injected into the bloodstream. And because the cancer cells love sugar, they eat those first, so the radioactive substances will accumulate in tumors, and then they just put you under a they do a scintigram with your scintigraphic screen, and then all the radioactivity would then be seen as blips, and then you can measure that. Take photos with over a long time span, and then you see where there is bright spots, then where are the tumors that have spread. So just for that, my engineer friend decided, you like sugar, right? Okay, so I will starve you to death by not giving you sugar anymore. So he also went on this diet, plus, of course, followed the therapy that was suggested by the doctor. He survived. I believe he's already 12 years. And yeah, so if there are no other tumors, no metastases measurable, then I would not go for therapy yet, but I would switch immediately into fasting mode, starving the cancer cells to death. Mom! Okay. And also, there was an important discovery made by a Japanese doctor, and he was awarded the 2016 Nobel Prize in Medicine. He studied autophagy in yeast cells. And autophagy is the thing that is needed, because in autophagy mode, the body would carefully check each and every cell, how much it contributes to the entire body and its survival. Well, this is so loud here. I thought this is a quiet place to walk. Now, I've written up the name of the doctor. His name is Yoshinori Ozumi. Yeah. And yeah, the autophagy, if a cell is found to not contribute to the body, then the other cells would recycle the components of that not useful cell for other purposes, building new cells or other stuff of the body. Is there other stuff? Everything is a cell, right? Okay. Yeah. And then I would move into autophagy, because in autophagy, you should see within a very short time. Oh, what happened here? You should see in a very short time whether the tumor reacts. Maybe just in order to make the doctors feel better, I would even do a chemo or something. But I would not let them do a surgery. That maybe I make a different choice after careful consideration with the doctor, because I would always give them the first say. Yeah. In very short words, that's what I would do. And then after 3 weeks, I believe you see the first results, because it took my body 3 weeks to recover from diabetes 3. Yes. We're now at the Italian restaurant. Let me go in. Hello. Yesterday we celebrated here. It was a final day. And you see, they're now clearing everything. Yeah. Chef Peppo takes over the restaurant in a very good hotel. Hello, Chef Peppo.
Martin.
Hello. Yes. He's busily working. Okay, I leave you in peace. Yeah. That's also interesting to say. Hello.
Hello, salve.
Salve. Tu sei italiano? Yeah, so yesterday, I mean, you know, Tuesday and Wednesday are my fasting days. Now that brings me to the second part of my talk, my success in losing 12 kg weight. My goal is to be in the 93 kg class in 21 and a half weeks from now. I believe I'm doing well in general. So that's about 1 kg every 2 weeks. So I'm a bit up from last week, because we had this celebration yesterday. And the celebration was, I mean, there was wine, because Peppo shuts down his restaurant, so he gave out all the things. So we had wine, and then we had pizza, that is carbohydrates. And I thought, it's okay, I can afford that. Number one, I'm walking a lot. Or I've been walking a lot. No, maybe I go to the back street so it's not as loud. Then the next thing, why I thought I consider this as a cheat day. And I also like the taste, so I believe every now and then I need to eat a pizza. It was very nice with friends, good. A social event, and that's being social is also important. There will be one more social event later this week, Friday night, the German evening, Singapore, for April. And yeah, being social is important for aging. Yeah. It's my plan to become at least 80 years old. And that's why I'm also doing this walking. Longevity research shows that you need to do something in order to stay fit. And walking is among it. So that would be the second thing that I would suggest to this lady, to get an Ura ring. Okay. This thing here. It's a very important measurement instrument. And to let her walk every day 10,000 steps. If she cannot do 10,000 on day one, start with 1,000. Next day, 2,000, 3,000, and so on. That's what I've done for my diabetes too. 3 weeks later, it was gone. And now imagine if you see that you can influence that cancer by doing something. What confidence that would create in a patient. Oh, it's a dead end. Cannot walk through. I've never been here before. Okay, then let's go to the main street. So, yeah, these are the measures that we have. And then after 3 weeks, do the VO2 max test again. And that will show, I'm very sure, an improvement of the mitochondrial health. Probably I would also take some supplements for supporting mitochondrial health. But you should talk with a doctor, I would say, before taking any medication, even if it's free over-the-counter supplement. I would talk with a doctor. And by the way, I would also only choose a doctor that believes in the theory that cancer is caused by a metabolic syndrome. So now, that brings me to my third point. I've done a DNA test because there was a opportunity to do it. I could help one of our clients who's selling these DNA tests, and I just took it without asking many questions. You know that I have a ChatGPT, and I entered the test result into my ChatGPT, and it gave a very good evaluation. There's also a session with the experts from the company that do the DNA test, and I won't tell them that I have already done an evaluation, but I will just wait and see what I get from them and compare. I will update you about that. So now, my result was pretty, how to say, okay, but what is okay? So I had one gene for colon cancer, and that's practically the only cancer gene that was found. I know others have more, and it also gave advice. I've lost a gene, or that has been, now the thing comes, you don't lose a gene in the sense that it falls out from the genetic sequence of the body. It would sit there for your entire life. But the test can, or seems to be able to detect whether a gene is active or inactive. And, or maybe can it drop out? Yes, the body can change the genetic sequence. And it seems to me that I have lost a gene that is used for processing dairy substance. I had it when I was young because with my mother milk I survived for, I don't know, a year probably. But I don't have this capability anymore. So I was recommended to stay away from dairy products, which I do now. So actually there are two dairy products that I consume are cheese and yogurt. And the yogurt for my daily smoothie I've replaced with a coconut yogurt that is free from dairy products. And it tastes good. So that I changed my life in so far. So I stay away from milk products, but I still eat cheese. And I need to find out more whether I also stop that. But I don't know, I like cheese. So, taking my towel out. So that was one result of the DNA test. Another result, that's a very beautiful building. Another result was that from my race, and it said that I'm 75% German French race and 25% Scandinavian race. And when you look at me, I have blue eyes, and that very often comes from Scandinavia. But actually it confirmed. What I know is that my grandfather is from Kaliningrad today was Königsberg. And my grandfather's family, my great-grandfather, born in around 1870. He was an officer in the Prussian army first, and then went to the Russian army, which was the White Army of the Tsar later. So you could switch between Russia and Russia. There was not even a... Yeah. And of course at home they spoke German language, Russian language and French language, because at the time that's the languages that were spoken. So, and when you look at that part of Europe, Kaliningrad or Königsberg, and Stockholm is only a few hundred kilometers away. To me, that makes a lot of sense. And also the fact that I have 25% of that genetic code, Scandinavian genetic code in me, says something. My grandfather influenced me for 25%. So each one of my parents gave me 50%, and my mother 50% from my grandfather, maternal. So that gives me 25%. To me, that confirms that this test is not fake. So, because I didn't tell them about that. And the next thing, what really surprises me is that there's no measurable difference between French and German. I mean, I don't have French ancestors at all, I know, because my paternal side is from Tyrolia, which is a tribe that lives in the Austrian mountains. That's also where my name Schweiger stems from. 50 years ago, Schweiger was a very rare name in Bavaria, or maybe 100 years. So these are all from Austria. And I know from my father's side that they for now 400 years, or we for 400 years, are in Bavaria. And there's the most northern county of Tyrolia is the Grafschaft Andex, near my hometown. It's a bit north of Garmisch-Partenkirchen, Innsbruck. So I'm really the most northern, among the most northern Tyroleans that are there. And they didn't dare, the test providers didn't dare to make a difference between French and German genetically, because it seems that they're all the same. And I can attest to that because I know many French, I speak French, so from the way they look like, you cannot tell any difference. But you can tell the difference between Scandinavians and Germans and French. So far, to the DNA test. So, now here's the problem. I'm analyzed with a gene that occurs often in people that have colon cancer. Does it now mean that I will get colon cancer? And I asked the literature, and literature, these medical doctors, they have a very funny language. I don't know whether they really know what they do, but they talk about genes being switched on or genes being muted by lifestyle, or illnesses, or and I'm carrying two cancer-linked genes. It's the BRCA1, and I also have the MSH2. And they will not become active unless something flips them on. And this flipping on can be done by many things. I read a few to you. For example, you have a chronic inflammation, or a sugar overload, or alcohol overload, or mitochondrial dysfunction. Then toxins can switch them on, or even poor sleep. And if you now look carefully, this is altogether a description of a metabolic syndrome. Comes with all these metabolic disorders. And that's probably why this Thomas Seyfried, 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 Thomas, had this hypothesis that it's the metabolic disorder that triggers cancer. And it's not a random DNA damage, but the mitochondria are damaged somehow because of your lifestyle. And that would need to be corrected by the body, and the body would then switch on some genes in a sense of an emergency program to react to that ongoing damage. And I mean, these medical doctors, very funny, they call it survival genes that are switched on. And then mostly they are responsible for growth. And if you don't change the external influences, then they would keep growing, and that would lead to cancerous behavior, unregulated growth, and then metabolism that is hungry on sugar because the mitochondria are no longer working, so the cells produce energy, ATP, by way of fermentation. Taken all together, cancer, I believe, is a result of a metabolic disturbance. And There's proof many people out there who cured their cancer by moving the body into autophagy, not only avoiding carbohydrates, but also getting the body into ketonic mode. And that can be measured. So apart from the Euro ring, I would give my domestic helper a ketones measurement instrument and let her write up the ketone level in her body. And just make sure that she is always above 1.0. Just for comparison, I measured today at noontime about my ketone level was 0.3. Is it millimole per liter or nanomole per liter? I don't know, something like that. And my breath acetone measurement was something like around 18 in my. Oh. Did it switch off? Oh, my battery is very low. In 44 minutes only. So what I do is I take this out from my gimbal and carry it by hand. Manual, as in the first episodes. Very funny. My gimbal only works for 45 minutes, 1 hour, that's it. I find this quite limiting because you've certainly seen that I talk often for an hour and then I don't talk for days. So, and I find when I compare this with last week and the week before, the measurement, my ketone level are quite low. And I believe that was because of the feast yesterday evening with my high intake of carbohydrates from the pizza. And so I did a blood sugar measurement. And my blood glucose level was something like 5.6. No wonder. I was fasting since yesterday, 10 p.m. Actually, no. I even had ice cream yesterday. So I was fasting since 11 p.m. only. And I had a very high blood glucose level yesterday because I had this leftover ice cream in the restaurant. I mean, have seen they closed down. So we killed everything that was there, inclusive the wine. And so my blood glucose level was low. And that's because my body has now a much reduced insulin resistance. But still, there's probably enough glucose around so that my body can feed around on that, like the glycogen, for example. So my glycogen storage is full, I suppose. So it takes longer to get my ketones in the blood and the acetone in my breath up. That explains what today. So, I can now explain many things because there's some correlation between my behavior and the genetic code that was found. And I was always asking, can that be that two persons have the same genetic code, for example, and they still look different? And yes, there's a story in Mark Ripto's book about strength training for older folks. Mark Ripto is something you should know in the area of strength training. He has derived a method of improving your strength. And I'm using it since 10 years or so for my own strength training. And he describes two siblings that are twins, and they have a very different lifestyle, and then they end in a very different way, at very different ages. Yeah. Then I was asking, what is the meaning then of genes? And if I can recommend one book that will change your worldview, then it's this book by Perry Marshall, and it's called Evolution 2.0. And this book is very different from all the other books that I know. I mean, you know, I'm not a biologist, I'm an engineer, and I'm also a patent attorney, and as such I have to do with gene technology. And so there are a number of mechanisms in all those gene technology books that I'm aware of, except for the Evolution 2.0. And they just describe how this works. I forgot the names. I have it on. I took a note, but actually it's not important. But no book ever describes how these different mechanisms work together. And Perry's book does it. It gives you a description. And it's also supported by a number of scientists. The problem in the book creates is that it starts with a hypothesis, and I believe it's true, that God has created this world and everything that lives on it. And He has used DNA to control our body functions. And the DNA being something like a program, computer program. And computer program has sections that can be activated or deactivated. And they behave in a certain way. And cells can run themselves in a certain way, depending on the outside conditions. And that cells can even produce a new species by reprogramming, not reprogramming, by activating the program in a different way. And then that state could then be inherited to other cells or other animals or humans. By the way, in a patent point of view, humans and animals. Humans is a sub-term of animal. So, and that's how Perry explains evolution. That's why it's called, the book is titled Evolution 2.0. Very cool book. And also what I learned was new is that cells communicate with each other. And it's not necessarily by the brain, but by other mechanisms. And then, of course, the question arises, who has provided the basic code for the cells? And for me, it's very clear. It's God, the one who created us. But if you don't believe in God and a creator, then that's a major problem already. But I cannot really help you with that one. You must find out on your own. What I know is I have genes that are related to cancer, and I just need to maintain a healthy lifestyle, and I will not get cancer. And if I get cancer, then I would just remove the unhealthy lifestyle and all that before I die, because of that condition. And I'm very sure if I do this, I will become very old. Or, if not earlier, I die because of some stupid accident that I have caused myself. And that would also be very typical for me. Yeah. Anyway, so I'm done for today. This was not a April Fool's video. I'm that serious with that. See you next time. Goodbye.